Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to worship this morning. My name is Pastor Chelsea, and it's my joy to get to welcome you here. We know we come from weeks that have been busy, from weeks that may have had lots of joys or lots of painful moments. We come all from different places, carrying all of that with us, and we all come here to be welcomed with the loving arms of God. We come here to rest in God's presence here with us, God's presence that says, "Be still, know that I am here." And so whoever you are, wherever you're from, whatever you're carrying with you, know that you are welcomed here into this space. And as the light of Christ comes forward to light this space up, we take this time to pause, maybe breathe in a couple breaths. We take this time to rest and prepare our hearts for worship, to prepare our hearts once again to soak in the presence of God with us, the presence of love and hope here with us today and with us as we leave. We worship this God who lights up this space, who lights up our hearts with that divine presence. And as we look towards those signs of Christ among us, Caitlin and Mike will light our Advent candles for us today.
The angel came to Mary and told her about God's wondrous plan, how God was coming to take on flesh and dwell among us, to turn the world on its head and bring about a new way where love and peace reigned. Mary heard that she was to be a part of this miracle and give birth to this holy child. And although it was unexpected, mysterious, and hard, she said, "Yes, God, use me." As we light these candles, we remember the hope that Mary carried, the hope that trusts in the power of seeds planted and nurtures those seeds, waiting expectantly for them to grow. May these candles illuminate us with hope, reminding us that hope can be found in something as small as a candle offering light in the darkness.
Today we enter into the middle of Mary's story. She's had that strange angel messenger come and tell her, hey, God is doing something new and wants you to be a part of it. And as she waits for that message, for that promise to be fulfilled, she goes and she visits her relative, Elizabeth. And as she's visiting Elizabeth, she sings this beautiful song we're about to hear. Now, we enter Mary's story knowing the end, right? We know that things pretty much work out okay for her. We know that in this difficult situation that she's in this vulnerable situation that she's in, we know what will happen to her and her child. Mary doesn't know any of this. Mary sings only aware of what she is going through, aware that this promise of joy and hope is also a promise that will be difficult to live out, a promise with a lot of questions. And so as we hear these familiar words of Mary's song, let's try to listen to them today and wonder what it would be like to sing them in the middle of our stories. What it would be like to go visit a friend and sing these words to them today. What would it be like to own these words in the middle of those times in our lives when we've felt vulnerable, when we've felt unsure? And so we hear now these words from Luke chapter 1.
And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely, from now on, all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him, from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever."
helps reframe how we see things. On the surface, Mary's situation was very difficult. It was not an easy thing to be an unwed, pregnant young woman. It was not an easy thing then, it's not an easy thing now. It was a dangerous and difficult situation for her to be in, and yet, that's not what she sings about, is it? What does she sing about? Joy. She sings about joy. She sings about this breaking through of God in a wondrous way. And that doesn't negate any of the hard things that she's going to have to face. That doesn't negate any of the difficulties, any of those difficult things that come with this promise. But her hope helps her to reframe, helps her to see that there is joy and blessing and beauty even in those difficult times. And I was reminded of this song when I heard from Berlene Wilson this week. She told a story about how she was reading A Christmas Carol. It's a story that many of us are probably a little overly familiar with. We know it very well. We've heard it many different ways. And she reads it every year. And she said that this year, while she was reading this story about Scrooge and those 3 Christmas ghosts, she was reading it through the lens of hope. And she noticed something that she had never noticed in this story before, even though she had read it time after time after time. She noticed how hopeful the story is, how many mentions of hope there were. She noticed that this is a story not just about someone rekindling joy in their lives, but also a story about hope being born. And so looking through that lens of hope changes how we see things. It helps us to see things that we otherwise might not have noticed. And so as we worship, we carry that lens of hope with us, that lens of joy, that lens that insists that even in the most unlikely of ways and unlikely of places, God is at work, is bringing forth this beautiful vision that Mary sang. And so as we hold on to that lens of hope, I invite the children to come forward for the children's moment. Will you pray with me? God, may the words of my mouth, may the thoughts of all of our hearts be pleasing in your sight. May we feel your Spirit moving within us. May we see you more. Amen. So around the end of last August, I was walking through a CVS store, and I decided to browse the Halloween decorations because I thought, no worries getting a head start on the season. That seems like a good idea. And I remember walking through this aisle of jack-o'-lanterns and bats when suddenly all of the things that were orange and black turned into Santas and reindeers and all things red and green. And I'm confident that each and every one of us has a story like this, a story of seeing Christmas decorations out or hearing Christmas carols sung really a little earlier than is anything reasonable. It seems like it's become kind of a standard joke for us that the 3 things we can count on now are death, taxes, and Christmas decorations being sold earlier and earlier and earlier in the year. Christmas festivities are beautiful and fun, and it's a chance for stores to make more money. But we miss something when we jump straight into Christmas. When we move too quickly to that joy of Christmas, we miss out on this season of Advent, this time that tells us to stop, to wait. Now, I'm not trying to be a Christmas Scrooge, and I don't like waiting any more than the next person. But this season of waiting is important for us. It reminds us that we can't triumphantly jump to the end of the story. We can't triumphantly jump past all of the pain and difficult and hard parts and get to the parts where everything's lovely and good and happy. That's just not how life works. And so we wait, acknowledging pain, acknowledging problems, acknowledging the longings of life that each and every one of us experience. And we know there is no quick, easy fix to those solutions. And so when we sit in this waiting, when we take the time to wait and to slow down, we are reminded that the Christmas message comes not because it triumphantly proclaims that everything is fine, all the problems are solved, but it comes with power because it tells us that in the most unlikely of ways, in the most unlikely of places, hope is born, not with the sudden bang, but with a tiny child, something so small that grows and grows and grows into something greater. And so today, we wait. Doesn't sound terribly exciting, does it? And it doesn't seem like the most productive thing to do. We tend to think that those who go out and get things done, those who are proactive, are better than those who wait. We don't give out trophies for the best waiter. We see that as maybe a little passive, a little lazy. But Mary gives us a powerful example in our scripture lesson today of what it can mean to wait. We hear her after she has received this message from the angel. She's heard about God's plan. She's agreed to be a part of it. And now we hear her waiting. And for her, this waiting is not optional. There's nothing she can do to speed along her pregnancy. But that does not mean that this waiting is just wasted time where she's twiddling her thumbs. As Mary waits, she sings this powerful song. It's a song that celebrates not only what God has done in her life, but also what God is doing in the world. And so she doesn't sing about how she's really blessed and important because she's been given this really prestigious role. She doesn't sing about how cool it is that God has said, you will be the mother of the Messiah. Instead, these mighty things that she said God has done are all about turning the world on its head, all about subverting our expectations. She sings about how God has chosen humility over power, about how God has chosen love over violence, how God has chosen justice over opulence. God is turning the world upside down, she says. Now, sometimes we see people in the Bible as superheroes, and I think we tend to do that a lot with Mary. And when we do that, it can make it seem like, of course she said these things. Of course she took the high road and chose humility and didn't laud her position over other people. But Mary's example is not a superhero. The power of her story comes because she is just an ordinary person, like you or like me. An ordinary person who has chosen to take seriously how she sees God at work in the world, who has chosen to align her dreams and her vision with God's. And so Mary's song that we heard has inspired people throughout the centuries. And one thing it inspired is the festival or feast of fools. It was a celebration during medieval times when things would get a little silly and people would act out this song of reversal, taking seriously what would it mean in our communities to turn things on their heads. And so people would show up to church that Sunday with their clothes inside out. You have no idea how tempted I was to wear my robe inside out. They would wear glasses, but instead of the lens, they would put orange peels there, so you're walking around and you can't see anything. The priests would waft foul-smelling incense throughout the church, and they would say the liturgy, not in whatever language was spoken, but in their own made-up, inarticulate gibberish. The whole point was to celebrate the ways that God was turning everything on its head, all in playful recognition that when we sing about this, we're not just talking about other people over there or other communities over there, but we're talking about ourselves and our own communities. We're talking about how easy it is to get wrapped up in looking for power or prestige or being the best. We're talking about how easy it is to take things a little too seriously. And so we wait by dreaming with God about a different way, by choosing again that foolishness of love that Mary sings about, that foolishness of love that seeks to serve and care for everyone, first and foremost. But the waiting doesn't end there. Mary's example takes it a step further. It's not just about aligning her dreams with God's dreams. There's something really strange about this song. She sings of thrones being torn down. She sings of the powerful no longer misusing the lowly. She sings of people being filled up with good things. And it's this beautiful, powerful image of God's world where justice and love always reign. And yet, if you'll notice, she sings in the past tense. Just kind of weird, right? We normally reserve the past tense for what? For the past, thank you. For the things that have already happened. We know that this is not the reality of the world she lived in. We know she didn't live in a place where justice always reigned, where the lowly were lifted up. We know that we don't live in that world. And so Mary either was a little bit out there, or maybe she was seeing something that we easily miss. Maybe Mary sings that these things have happened, not because she literally thinks they've already happened and she lives in a utopia and everything's great, but because she knows that the seed has been planted. And she trusts that, as unlikely as it seems, that seed will grow. It will grow and grow and grow, and this child that seems so small and so powerless will one day grow to turn that world upside down, to continue to turn the world upside down. The powerful message of hope that's embedded in this song is that, unlikely as they seem, these small things are seeds that grow and grow into something greater. And there's deep hope in acknowledging those small things as seeds. It stops us from rushing on towards the end goal, wanting to get there already to that perfect world, and reminds us that we can nurture these seeds, these small moments, with confidence that they will grow. I think it's that hope that's so powerful and so dangerous in this song. During the Guatemalan Civil War in the 1990s, the government went so far as to outlaw all public readings of Mary's song because it was giving people too much hope that things could change. It was causing them to have that courage to take a stand, and so it had to be banned. And similarly, during the Dirty War in Argentina, where 30,000 people were disappeared by an abusive military dictatorship, a group of women whose children were among that number got together, and they plastered the Capitol with printouts of Mary's song as an act of protest. In neither of these instances did Mary's song instantly fix all the problems and make everything better. That's not real life, right? But it did offer hope. It offered a step forward. And so Mary's song has been a guide for those who long and hope for a different world, for a world of justice and dignity and love. It's a message that reminds us our call is not to be victorious conquerors who fix all the world's problems and make everything better. Our call is to be waiters, people who look for those seeds of hope that God has been planting, people who tend and nurture them so that they can sprout forth and grow into something bigger and bigger and bigger. This is what Mary is doing while she's waiting, right? She's literally nurturing the seed of hope that grows within her. Mary's story reminds us that God chooses to act in this really unlikely and weird way. God chooses to act with Mary, with us. God doesn't act through Mary like she's just an obedient vessel that has been chosen conveniently. But God acts with Mary. She's an active participant in birthing the hope of God into the world. And so as we wait in this Advent season, Mary reminds us that our waiting is not sitting around twiddling our thumbs, but it's active. This time for us is like a greenhouse, a time for us to nurture those little seeds of hope and peace and love and joy that are being planted, to till the soil so those seeds can grow within us. I recently learned that the poinsettias we decorate with during Christmas are actually completely green. It takes sitting in a dark room, in a completely dark room, for hours and hours and hours on end, for them to burst forth into those vibrant red colors that we know and love. This time of waiting is a dark greenhouse for us. And so we wait, not because we pretend that Jesus has never been born, not because we pretend that everything is perfect, but we wait, allowing those holy longings to stir in our hearts, the longing for a world turned truly upside down by God's love. And we look for those tiny, unlikely seeds of hope, those seeds that we see perhaps when people stand up for the right thing, those seeds we see perhaps when people reach out and offer a small act of kindness and compassion to others, those seeds we see in countless other ways that seem so small, but when they're tended and watered and nurtured, can grow into something so much greater. These seeds are ours to nurture, to care for, ours to grow, trusting that they will burst forth in the beautiful, vibrant colors of God's love and God's hope, born again in the world. Because God is still here at work with us, still planting seeds, still calling us to tend to the garden of hope that grows and grows. Amen.